So Reactivity, is it?
Yeah, so we've had her for a bit over a year, and we have another dog who we had before her, and he's a senior, and she has started to show a little like resource guarding with him, and so like a couple weeks ago, they like she was laying on a bed and there was a rawhide there and he came up near her and he wasn't trying to get it or anything, but she just Birdie, she just went after him and I grabbed her to try and stop her and you can still kind of see it, she clamped onto my hand. Okay. And
Birdie,
after that, like she didn't,
Birdie, can you sit?
It was like she didn't know what to do. Like she had my hand and she just kind of sat there.
Hey, Birdie. It's okay.
And then that was it. Like they were separated and they were fine, but my hand was pretty bad. And we've seen it a couple other times with her. And then she also, the longer we've had her, the more kind of reactive to other dogs she's gotten, like on walks, or like we just moved into a house that has a yard, and our neighbor has a dog, and like if he's out in the yard, she just is just at the fence, just barking, trying to get out, trying to like.
And on walks, she loves other dogs. She enjoys meeting them, but oftentimes, because the other dog is very old and slow, if she gets withheld from meeting another dog, then she becomes not aggressive, but she just starts barking. She's excited and she's barking at the other dog. And then if she gets to meet other dogs, she comes up and she sniffs. Sometimes that's totally fine, and then sometimes after a couple minutes, if she doesn't get to play more, then she starts barking, and it sounds aggressive, but she's just annoyed that she's not getting to do what she wants to do.
She also has a very, very loud, like high-pitched bark, which freaks out other people, and so it just kind of all like feeds on itself.
Sure. Yeah. And she's a Pittie too. So
yes, exactly. Yeah.
I gotcha.
And we've had Pitties before.
Yeah.
And you know we're used to the breed and everything, but
any issues like hers before with your previous Pitties, or?
Our previous girl Layla, she wasn't great with other dogs, but she was less like Birdie. She has zero impulse control, and that's it's something we've seen kind of come up a lot with different issues with her. Like, so we adopted her from anti-cruelty, and she had been an owner relinquishment, somebody who lived in a high-rise but was in a wheelchair, and so just never took her out. So like she'd never been potty trained. And like that's been a struggle. Like she's getting a lot better with it, but it used to be like as soon as she had to go, she just went.
Yeah.
She had no, like we could take her out every single hour and it would still be as soon as she had to go. If she was in the house, she peed. And that's gotten a lot better.
It's gotten a lot better for sure.
But yeah, she just, when she wants something, she wants it right then, right there, and we have not been able to kind of figure out how to like break her out of that, like.
It's okay, Birdie. And I think
whatever.
A lot with her meeting other dogs, I think that's where her like bark response comes. If she's just, I want to meet that dog, and if she doesn't get to right now, it's again not aggression. It's just she starts barking towards the other dog because she's wants to meet him.
Sure. And the prong collar here, is this just something that you added in from a previous trainer? Or?
So we did have it from our
Birdie.
from our old dog.
So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your prong, you're gonna rotate it so the chain is on top.
Come here, Bert.
And I'm gonna have you scooch it up so it's up right behind the jaw.
What?
I'm gonna have you pull her in towards you. And then if you're not gonna say sit, you're gonna lightly pull up with your left hand, and with the right hand, you're gonna lightly press down on the hindquarters. Okay. Now every time she gets up and moves, I'm gonna have you repeat this process. Okay. If she lays down, it's fine. But if she gets up, you're gonna just repeat the process. Don't say sit. Don't pet her. Don't touch her. Don't say good girl. None of that stuff. Just keep doing that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I don't remember what I was talking about. Oh, the
the
prong
prong
collar.
collar.
Prong collar,
Yeah, so we had it for Layla, our previous dog. And when we first got her, we went through a couple different kinds of collars. Another trainer recommended a Halti,
Yeah.
and that made it worse.
When we first had her, she was pulling a lot on walks, just like extremely excited. And again, she had been living for a year or two, not being able to do that, and we were walking regularly, so she was really excited about that. And she was almost every walk at the end of the leash, like just charging ahead. And this really, really helped her with walking. And then whenever we tried the other, she reverted right back to being like really unmanageable on walks.
Do you know why the prong collar is designed this way?
I know it's supposed to feel kind of like when their moms pick them up.
That's mimic a dog bite.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many times clients come in or consults come in and they slap the prong on the dog and I'm like, do you know why that is the way it looks? And they're like, oh, like to like hurt the dog or stab the dog? I'm like, no, it's meant to mimic a dog bite. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I used to volunteer at Paws and did a couple different levels of their training,
Sure.
so we worked with these a little bit.
Gotcha. Okay. Anything else I should know about Birdie?
I don't think so. I mean, yeah, we just
Oh, the other thing that we want to mention, like, so like obviously she bit Lee when Lee was intervening, but then other like her form of affection is tiny little bites.
Yeah.
like the like
The nibbling, the mouthing.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Do you know why you got bit?
I distracted her from the thing I mean, I don't think she was trying to bite me.
No.
I think she was mad. Rutherford's our other dog. I think she felt like Rutherford was trying to take her bone, and I was trying to protect him, and I put my hand in there, and it
happened.
Yeah.
Do you know what that's called?
No.
No? Okay. And I'm not, I asked because I'm trying to see what your thought process is.
Mm-hmm.
We call it a redirect.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. So you weren't the target. You are correct.
Right.
It's a bar fight, if you will.
Right. Exactly.
Where everybody's hitting everybody.
Yeah, it's
and
just
then they feel something and it happens.
going around.
Okay. So I tell the client, never take it personally.
Yeah.
Some people will. Because they're like, oh, I do everything for this dog and they bite me. I'm like, well, they weren't intending to.
Right. Yeah.
And this is stuff that, like, me as a trainer, and I specialize in aggression and reactivity and everything. As I go into it, in certain cases, like I had a client today was her first class, Pittie, reactive, and during the consult, I told them, yep, bring her in. There's potential for redirect because her intensity and the reactivity, the glimpses that I saw here with the dogs in passing, was pretty intense. So I told them, with that level of intensity, my assumption is our correction level when we get there may be very high. And because it's so high and the frustration is so high, the dog, that's got an outlet somewhere, and it's where they go after the leash or they go after the handler. So I always make sure to try to educate people as much as possible. So when they go into it, going, this is the worst that it could be, according to Jesse, and I can do it or I can't do it.
Okay.
Because obviously there's always limitations for everybody.
Sure.
So, but yeah, she wasn't intending to bite you.
Yeah.
Your dog's not human aggressive. That's
No.
another thing that happens. Is the moment the dog bites somebody, they're like, oh, my dog is human aggressive. I'm like, no, they bit you because of X, Y, Z. They were actually
Right.
guarding their bowl. You decided to put your hand in their bowl.
Right.
They bit you because they didn't like that, and you just happen to be a human.
Right.
'Cause that's a very
Could have been
common thing I come
anything.
across. Where they're like, I was like, why is your hand in your dog's bowl? Because it's my dog, and I should be able to do whatever I want. I go, that's not how this works. Okay?
Sure. Yeah.
So, but yeah. But yes, you're correct. The prong collar is meant to mimic like the bite of a mother, a dog bite, if you will. The nibbling to show affection. So dogs are very mouth-based creatures. They nip and bite as a form of affection, form of correction, protection, right? Guarding. Like they use their mouth pretty much for everything. To express themselves, like in terms of if they're anxious, they're panting, they're salivating, right? Barking, like it's a lot of just mouth-based types of behaviors, which is why we use the tools that we use. Now, I'm assuming before booking this, you did research the tools that we use, or like looked into that.
Yes, and I don't remember your friend's name.
Laura.
Do you know her last name?
Do you know the dog's name?
I'd have to look it up.
Is it a Pittie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it a black Pittie?
I think so.
Is it?
That
Yes,
sounds right.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
She
I
wrecked.
just saw her like 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
okay. Yeah, so she a long time ago, we have a friend who has an insanely reactive dog who really needs to go to a trainer, but she doesn't want to. Anyway, Laura had recommended you for them, and so then when we
And Laura just had like great
Yeah.
things. She like had a lot of success with.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, Gidget, I think, was back in like 21, 22.
Yep.
yeah,
it was a
early
while back.
pandemic, yeah.
So we use e-collar, right?
Right.
I incorporate prong collar when I feel it's necessary. Okay, so earlier with that Pittie, we were incorporating prong collar because they were only doing 3 classes, because that's all they had budget for. And then, so when she barks, you can pull up.
Okay.
So you're gonna pull straight up, and then bring her in, and then up again, and then relax. Very good. And the husband, not the husband, the son is disabled. So I go, okay, there's some mental disability. We need as many things working in our favor as possible. So they're doing from the get-go prong and remote collar. Okay. Most cases I do remote collar first with flat collar and then incorporate prong collar if I think it's going to be needed. In some cases, if the owner already comes to the prong, they just like it because they feel more comfortable with it. We incorporate the e-collar. And in some cases, they move past the prong collar and just use remote collar. And in other cases, they keep both. Every case is different. Okay.
And we're very comfortable with the prong collar. Again, our previous Pittie Layla, it just worked really well.
Yeah, no, it's a great tool. I have nothing against prong collars. The reason why I don't, they're not a core foundation or like a tool in my training methods is because the remote collar pretty much does everything.
Sure.
Okay. The prong is there as like added control. So like I had a client that she was like maybe 100 pounds soaking wet. She was like 4'10", if that, with a 150-pound Great Dane.
Oh,
Okay. In Bucktown, who was leash reactive.
Ooh.
So she's like, sometimes I turn a corner and there's a dog, and like my dog's just
Sure, yeah.
dragging me. So I told her prong and remote collar from the get go for sure.
Yep.
You know,
Right.
Had another couple, wife was expecting, or they were expecting, and they had 2 Great Danes who were reactive. I'm like, both dogs are wearing a prong collar, this and that, right? So it's a great tool. It's just I don't rely on it to create considerable change because there are limitations to it. So a prong collar is also capable of doing corrections. Have you ever used it as a correctional tool?
A little bit, but not really with her. We did with Layla.
yeah. Again, like we don't. Well, maybe you had experience with Layla, but it's like we don't use it for other than it just makes her like she just behaves better on walks with it.
Because if she feels the pressure of the prongs, it kind of dissuades the pulling or whatever.
Yeah.
A correction would be when you purposefully, like we call it a leash pop. When you pop the leash, it creates that biting motion. And what can happen is, if we have a dog that's leash reactive and you use it to correct the behavior, if the dog's at a 12 and your correction is only at a 10, like you're not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
Right? With remote collar, we don't really have that issue. I would say 99% of the time there's exceptions. Because if I have the appropriate collar for the dog, I have 127 respective levels in increments of 1 to break through the behavior. Okay. There are extreme cases. I've had dogs that needed 2 remote collars in order to cut through the aggression. 4 out of 5 were 150-pound dogs, so it makes sense because they were so massive. They were just like, whatever. And then one of them was an 80-pound Pittie, and it turned out later on because the dog's name was Doug. The owner did a testimonial, and I had found out the dog was on gabapentin. And gabapentin is a painkiller.
Right.
So I didn't know this during the training. I thought he was completely off meds because he was on trazodone, fluoxetine, and gabapentin. Okay.
So she's on fluoxetine.
Okay. So in my experience and opinion, it doesn't do anything. Now, I may be biased because I get all the dogs where it's not doing anything.
Sure, yeah.
So I always do leave that out there. But I've had a lot of dogs come in on multiple drugs, and they're still either trying to kill me or they're going after another dog on a leash. And in a good chunk of the time, the owners will move past the drugs. The owners that don't move past them, they tend to just, they don't want to change anything, because they're like, well, I did the training with the drugs and everything is working, so I don't want to remove the drugs and then maybe potentially regress.
Yeah.
And I go, at the end of the day, it's your dog, it's your rules, I could care less, but the one drug or any drug that's a painkiller, I'll tell the client for sure you need to take the dog off.
Okay.
Of that. Okay. Fluoxetine isn't one of those drugs. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I guess that's the other thing. So it has made a really big difference for her. When we first brought her home, she would just stand. I walked her 10 or 12 miles a day.
She had to go out she was just constantly demanding attention and walks.
And she would just stand in front of us
activities.
and just bark.
Constantly.
And she doesn't like toys. She doesn't like,
so we
there
couldn't
was
distract her with
nothing that
anything
we
else.
could give her. And now she can actually like lay down
Come
and
and
like,
rest and
She also has really severe car anxiety.
Yeah, it's a separate thing.
So yeah, so that's
that's
what the fluoxetine's been helping her with.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it's what looks like OCD in a human perspective, right? Like that intense focus.
Yeah.
And the thing about pitties is that they were bred for intensity.
Right.
And what can happen is if there's like reactivity, if there's this kind of like OCD behavior, anxiety, separation anxiety, that intensity that was bred into them for like the fighting stuff tends to fuel these problem behaviors. And that's why, like, and I love pitties. I have a pittie. She's 15 years old now.
Oh.
She's retired. She doesn't do training sessions with me anymore. But I've had her since she was 3 months. And by the time she left the breeder at 2 months and got to me at 3 months, within that 4-week span, she went through 3 other homes. Okay. She was just a menace.
Yeah.
And with me, like, she's socialized with so many aggressive dogs. She's my right-hand girl, Lexi. But I've had her since, as soon as I got her, it was just, she was in the wrong hands, essentially, right? But I could see the intensity there that what was, even though she was a, 2-month-old to 3-month-old puppy, was driving people crazy. But that's stuff that typically people don't account for. And then, like, if I deal with a reactive German Shepherd versus, like, a reactive Pittie, like, it's, like, 2 different animals. Okay? So, and it comes with the territory of just owning a power breed, in my opinion. Bull Terriers, Pitties, Bulldogs, Rotties, like, all these massive dogs, like, they're bred for power. And that's the stuff that people don't account for. So then, like, when we're very high on the collar, like, for me, it's normal. But for the owner, because they have the emotional attachment, they have but my dog is the sweetest dog. How am I at 90 right now? I'm like, I understand your dog is a sweet dog in the home. But when we're outside the home and there's another dog out in public, your dog is not that sweet dog anymore. you know? So, questions about any of this stuff so far?
I don't think so.
So the way it works with reactivity, most people tend to think, because when we use aversives like prong or remote collar, we're going to force the reactivity and then we're just going to punish the hell out of the dog.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what most people tend to think. That's not how it works. That is technically an approach, but it's not the first approach. It's typically one of the last approaches. Okay, where I've exhausted everything else and I go, okay, this is just a very stubborn dog and we're just going to have to do this the hard way. Okay, the first thing we teach is leash walking. Okay, which is the heel command. Leash pulling and leash reactivity are the 2 most common things that I deal with as a trainer. Okay, heel fixes both those problems from the get-go. Okay, so class 1, you guys show up, you have your dog, you have the appropriate collar, and then I don't touch the dog anymore. I coach you through everything from beginning to end. Okay, so you're teaching the dog yourself. In the summertime, pending when clients start, I actually train out of Oz Park. Okay, which is the busiest park in Chicago, statistically speaking. Okay. So it doesn't matter where we train, because the way that I teach my clients to be able to adapt to the environment. Okay, so if we're in here and we're working, it's calmer, not much going on. It's okay, it just allows us to focus. But the owner or the dog owner will walk out knowing, okay, I know how to take what I just learned and then apply it in my neighborhood setting. Okay, if we happen to be at Oz Park, it's just nice because they get the experience of training with things happening, but it's not necessary to have progress. Okay, so you come in, you show up, I coach you, I give you a simple exercise, we do a few repetitions. Okay, I'm assuming it'd be the 2 of you, correct?
Yeah.
And I try to split it 50-50. I will always focus on the primary handler first, because typically that's where all the work is. By the time the leash is handed to the second person, all the work is done. That's exactly what I saw earlier today. Okay, I see it all the time. It transfers very quickly.
Okay.
I give you homework, you go off, you rinse and repeat. You come back generally a week later. Okay, you give me feedback. Hey Jesse, her walking is the best it's ever been, or it's 80% better. Her leash reactivity is better. She's 50% better. Dogs across the street used to drive her nuts. Now she can ignore them. Like, you give me feedback. And the feedback you give me tells me what I need to do next. Okay, so then there's heel part 2. So if you come back and you go, Jesse, her reactivity is 30% better, but her leash walking is great. In my mind, I'm going, okay, we probably just need to raise the level a bit. Okay, to help kind of close that gap or whatever. So we make some adjustments. I teach you the second part of heel. You go off, you rinse and repeat. You come back class 3. Give me feedback. Hey, Jesse, her reactivities have been better, or it's 0% better, right? And I'll ask you, like, where was she reactive? Oh, there was a dog behind a fence. We turned the corner and there was a dog and it surprised us. Like, that makes sense.
Sure.
Because it's higher intensity. But if you're like, yeah, she's still reacting to dogs across the street, what I start to assume, and you're like, we went as high as 60, I go, okay, this is most likely a high intensity type of case. And we just keep working at it, okay? So with the remote collar, we always start low and we work our way up. Have you ever been to a chiropractor or physical therapist?
Yeah.
Have you had TENS therapy?
Yeah.
Is that the little buzzy things?
Yeah. That move your muscles?
Yeah.
That's an e-collar.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So like with humans, they tell you, tell us when it's too much, right? They'll raise it up and you go, oh, too much. They raise it down. And they go, how is that? They go, that's good. I can deal with that, right? Yep, bring her in, pull up. It's the same thing for dogs. We start low. We generally start at 15 because that's where most dogs tend to feel it. And then we slowly go up on the collar, okay? And I find a number that's concerning to the dog where they start to think to themselves like, I gotta do something about this. But it's not so over the top that they're just like, "Wah," and they can't think about it, okay? Every case is different. I can't tell you what your dog's number is gonna be, okay? What I do tell my Pittie owners is, don't be surprised if the number is up there.
Sure.
Okay? But we always start low. So if we've reached class 3 and you've gone as high as 60, and we're still seeing issues with dogs across the street or something, I'm going, okay, then our number's gonna be somewhere above 60,
Yeah.
right? And then what we could do is we can do controlled contacts where I bring out a dog. And we force the reactivity, and then we work through it, but we can take our time. We're not in a rush to get it done. Unfortunately, when you're outside, you only have a small window, right? As long as that trigger is around. In some cases, they see you and they turn around, which only reinforces her behavior because she goes, I lunged and barked, they went away.
Right.
I got a
fixed it.
response. Exactly.
Yeah.
Or they start saying stuff like, what are you doing to your dog? And then now you feel embarrassed or whatever, and then that's a whole nother spiel, okay? Trust me, I've done this for 15 years. I'm well aware of everything that happens, okay? So then if you come back, you're like, hey, Jesse, we try to work through it. We can't. But you know, we can see that it's getting to her, but we don't know what the number is, but we don't have the time to figure it out because it's only a 30-second interaction. I go, great, let's bring the dog out, okay? And then we focus on the reactivity. And I work with you to show you what I call handler skills, what you do in the moment to contain and control your dog as best as possible, while at the same time trying to mitigate the behavior, okay? And then you take that and you rinse and repeat. In some cases, if I know it's going to be difficult, I'll tell the dog owner, don't come back for class 4 until you've made progress, okay? And I'll tell them, email me. So if like a week goes by, they go, hey, Jesse, I can see it's kind of working, but I'm still not there yet. I'll go, where's your number, this and that. You're going to do this next via email. They'll go off and do that, and they'll come back and give me more feedback, right? Typically, about 2 to 3 weeks is what it'll take for us to kind of go through all the motions, and then we finally find the answer where they go, Jesse, it's starting to now just, it's being effective, or it's not a struggle. I go, great, do it for another week or 2. So I want to make sure that it's actually working. So once we get the right working number, or correctional number, it's night and day. It's night and day. Where you're walking with your dog and you're like, wow, like she normally would have just started barking at that, and she's not, right? So once I see that consistently for a week or 2, I go, now come back for class 4, and we can start building on stuff, okay? But once you understand how to address reactivity, it's literally just going through all the motions. And that's just going from 15 all the way up to where you need to go. And then once we say, let's say it's 75, you're like at 75, she stops like that. And I go, great, continue to do that. You come back 2 weeks later, hey, Jesse, we haven't seen reactivity in a week ever since we started implementing 75. I go, great, we found the answer. Now come back and let's do some more training.
Sure.
Okay? It's a waste of time a lot of times to have the client come back just to do the same stuff all over again. It's to get the most out of your investment. It's best to do it that way. You're always welcome to come back if you need to. It does happen. Usually, again, with more severe cases, because the owner's just like, this dog is crazy. You know, I go, I get it. But for the most part, I would say like 90% of people, 95% of people are able to just get it done after the 3rd class with my email support, and then come back for class 4. Okay? Question on any of that stuff. What is your goal for Birdie here? Like, what are your goals in entirety?
So I think we would like her to be able to, like, meet other dogs. I guess I understand we may learn that that's just not an option for her, but we would ideally love for her to be able to, like, meet and interact with other dogs normally.
Yeah, not escalate the situation if she doesn't get her way.
And I mean, we want to make sure that our other dog is safe, just because, again, like, I don't think, it's not that she wanted to hurt him, but like she got in that state and like wasn't, like, I don't know what would have made her back off if I hadn't intervened. I just have no idea.
How old's your other dog?
He's 12, 13. He has arthritis, and he has a brain tumor and a lot of like neurological issues. So he's we're probably not going to have him that much longer. And so we can't. He can't fight back. And he can't even he can't get away.
For sure.
So we just.
So considering those circumstances, and I would do this even if like he was a young healthy dog, is with the resource guarding, there's only so much we can do, right? Your best option right now, even if you don't go forward with training and stuff, is anything that is a resource to her, even him, just put it all away.
Yeah, we removed all the rawhides, and we've been feeding them in separate areas and staying with them to make sure they stay separated.
The next thing would be like if she has a dog bed and like he happens to like be walking towards that direction, I would just assume and like redirect them if possible. The moment you see like if their dog bed's over here and he's over here, but then you start to see he's walking this way, that's where I already step in to redirect him. Because dogs will even guard like their beds and stuff as a precaution. So it's happened in the past where like the dog will guard one thing and never have guarded a certain thing. And then all of a sudden they get like so many wins, so to speak, that all of a sudden they start guarding things that they weren't guarding before. Right? So that's the stuff that she's the only one that can tell us what's going to happen there. And considering the dog's age and all those other things, I'm more cautious than you would think. You know? Whereas most people think, oh, there's never been an issue over toys. And then one day there's an issue over toys. You know, like that stuff does happen.
Sure.
So that would be, in my opinion, your best bet in that regard. Now, is there stuff we can do about resource guarding? Absolutely. Okay. But in that moment, the risk versus reward, right? Like the reward of having them be able to walk past when she's got a bone or something isn't worth the risk of something happening, right? So that's why I tell clients, don't worry about it. Just put stuff away. You know, be as vigilant as you can without being paranoid. We have 3 dogs of our own. I had a dog that recently passed. My OG Zena, the reason why I became a dog trainer. She passed a week before my son was born. So we have my 2 senior dogs, a Chihuahua and a Pittie, who are 15, and we have my wife's Great Pyrenees mix, who's about 6 years old. You know, and our females don't. The Pit and the Great Pyrenees don't like each other. They coexist with each other. Okay. And but because we're so on top of when I see certain interactions where I'm like, yeah, you're not going to do that before something would even happen. Right. Is actually how I have peace among them. That makes sense. Yeah. So that would be your best bet in that regard. If resource guarding is something you're wanting to address, we can to a degree, but sharing isn't always a thing that dogs can do. Okay. I have in the past had dogs. So I used to take like rescue dogs, train them, and then help them find a home many years ago. And some of them were resource guarders, and they would learn to share with my dogs, where they would play. I could play fetch with them, right? And they'd be like, "Wow, they don't fight each other." I'm like, no. They're like, "Oh wow, like I can do that." I go, "No." I was like, "I can do it because I am a trainer who invested lots of times into my skills, and I read into things. Like I see things that the normal person wouldn't see. So yes, I can do it." But I wouldn't advise that you go and then take your dog to the park and play fetch thinking that they can share, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Okay? But if the resource guarding is something you'd like to cover, it is fairly simple. It just takes a lot of time and repetition to get it where we would want it to be. Once you understand how to do it, it's literally just practice this and practice this and practice this, and then one day you get it, okay? So resource guarding is an instinctual behavior. It's normal to a degree, right? Because in her world, if she's out in the wild and she finds a chicken bone, right, or a piece of food, she's going to guard it because she doesn't know when she's going to find the next piece of food, right? And if I give her a bully stick, she doesn't understand that I can go to Kreiser's and grab another bully stick off the shelf and replace it, right? She just thinks, I have this thing, I don't know when it's going to get it, when I'm going to get it again, or what have you, so I'm going to protect it. It just happens. So what we end up teaching, if we're trying to address it, is I teach dogs by default, nothing is theirs unless I tell them, now you can take it. So that means if I drop a bully stick that she could have had 50 times before, and I drop it on the ground, she looks at it and goes, not mine, and like walks away, right? By default. Whereas typically you drop something and the dog's like, oh, and they just go for it. But that's what incentivizes the resource guarding, because it's finders keepers. Okay, so that's something that can be taught, and it's simple. It just takes time and repetition. Okay, so we have that. What else do we have as a goal?
I mean, I think those are our big ones.
Yeah, her being able to meet or exist with other dogs and not flip out would be great. And even the resource thing, like as you're saying, like we understand that's just a thing. Like it'd be nice to address it so we don't have to worry about it as much, but we will continue to be vigilant. And
Yeah, and it's also, again, it's something that has really she's only exhibited in the last month. Like it used to be like we would feed them and they would like walk back and forth, switch between bowls, no problem whatsoever. And then I noticed it like once last month, and then this happened, and so that's kind of why we were like, all right.
Yeah, time to do something.
Yeah.
So that's sometimes how these things work. If the dog isn't already instinctively a resource guarder, like you know, like when people adopt dogs, there's usually a 2 to 4 week grace period where the dog is finding their spot.
Right.
Right, and then they begin to open up and be themselves.
Yep.
In other cases, the owner say, Jesse, this dog's been like this the day I got them. And they go, that's just how the dog is. It's nothing to, it's like the nature versus nurture thing.
Sure,
right?
sure.
But what can happen is, like I mentioned earlier, they do it a couple of times and it works. And all of a sudden the ego grows and then it starts to become more prevalent, or it starts to expand to other objects, things like that. So the good thing is like addressing it as soon as possible before it becomes a like set pattern.
Right.
Okay. When it comes to the other dogs and introduction and stuff, my advice as a trainer is I don't like random dog introductions. Okay. Now, does this mean you can't do it yourself? No, absolutely not. Okay. But I've seen it happen where somebody goes, "Is your dog friendly?" And they go, "Yeah." And they come over, and then there's a spat. Most of the time, spat.
Right.
Every now and then, a dog bite. Okay. Here's a client story. My first post-COVID client, her testimonials on my YouTube. A blonde lady, very loud, projects very well when she talks. I trained her dog. Her dog dislocated her husband's shoulder 3 times in 2 years. Sent him into the ER twice. Friendly dog, big dog. Okay, just too friendly. We did the training. Dog's great. They were at Treps Park, and she had her dog off leash. And this lady walks in and goes, "Hey, can my dog say hi to your dog?" And she goes, "Sure." Right? They go to greet. The other dog goes after my client's dog. Okay, my client recalls her dog. Dog pulls away. No one's hurt. Okay. And she goes, "Oh my God, is your dog okay?" And the lady's like, "Yeah, we just got this dog like a day or 2 ago. We don't know what his deal is."
wow.
Yes. And then my client was like, "Well, if you would have told me, my answer would have been much different." So then we also just have the ignorance of other dog owners, unfortunately. You know? So random on-leash introductions are more likely to go south because of how it's done. So if a dog, so we greet, "Hi, how are you?" Right? Dogs don't. They greet nose to butt.
Right.
It's like a yin yang. But when they greet on leash, we get nose to nose, which is confrontational. And that's why they tend to become spats or altercations, if that makes sense. Now, if you want me to show you how to introduce Birdie to a friend's dog, a family member's dog, a dog that we have control over, right? And we can do things appropriately, I go, that's completely realistic.
Yeah.
Okay. And like I get dogs that are antisocial. Like you ever had someone who's like a shy friend, and then you get to know them really well, and they're just like completely different than when you first met? There's some dogs that are like that, and they need a bit more trust before they open up to another dog. So the exercises that I teach allow us to build trust, comfort with the other dog. Gives us a set kind of structure that helps the dog kind of recognize, like, okay, I know what we're doing here. And then from there, build a friendship, so to speak, if that makes sense. Okay. Now there's also exceptions because this usually throws people off. Let's say we introduce Birdie to another dog. We do it over and over again, right? Everything's great. You take the leash off, they're playing. And then Birdie gets tired. She comes and lays at your feet. And then the friend's dog comes over to say hi to you. What do you think might happen?
She could, oh, I thought she was laying down.
It's okay. Yeah, thank you out there.
Come here. I mean, she could resource guard us.
Correct. And this is what throws people off. As they go, Jesse, they are just playing right now. I don't get it. I thought they were friends. I go, right, but when your dog came and laid at your feet and went into a resting state, instinctively it just turns on like this kind of guarding mode. It's nothing that she's plotting.
Right.
She's not like, you know what, I'm gonna stop
Not
playing
laying
with
in
you
wait.
and guard my, yeah. It literally, they're in position, and when another animal enters or a person enters, it just triggers the instinct, okay? It's nothing like they're plotting. But as the average dog owner, people aren't expecting that. And then they get thrown off, if that makes sense. Whereas for me, I'm completely expecting it.
Right.
And I would be like, okay, get out of here, because I know what's going to happen when this dog comes over.
Right.
Kind of like what I mentioned, because if she's over here and your other dog's over here and I see this happening, I'm already stopping it, assuming what may happen, okay? Knowing dog behavior. So there's exceptions to that, where she'll be playing just fine, but then all of a sudden we have tense moments, okay? So that's like kind of the other kind of little bit of gray area. I do my best to educate you as much as possible, right? But either sometimes complacency kicks in, where the only goes, my dog is great, and I trust my dog fully now, and then they become lax in what they're doing, and all of a sudden
Something happens.
Yeah, it's a very common thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, I suppose, like, it would be nice if in controlled situations, because she loves other dogs for the majority, so just it'd be nice for her to be able to do that. But, like, even just, like, now in our neighborhood, we recently just moved, and now there's even more dogs in the neighborhood, many of them behind a fence, and it's just, like, she's the neighborhood asshole who's, like, flipping out on the sidewalk, and it's just like, no, it'd be nice if we could just walk past and...
Walk past and
Yeah.
like, maybe they like sniff each other for a second and we continue.
Yeah, that's... Getting there would be really nice.
Yeah. So the fence reactivity, like behind the fence stuff, that's something that can be addressed. I again wouldn't recommend the sniffing, because let's say it starts off as sniffing, and then the other dog goes, okay, you've been in front of my yard for too long, and then they become defensive
Sure.
again. It triggers her.
Sure.
And then you end up in another situation, right? Again, these are just things I know as a trainer. What you decide to do post whatever, I go, your dog at the end of the day, okay? But walking past the yard that's with the dog barking through the fence is a realistic goal. What's nice about them is we have controlled context so that we can work on them and drill them. You just have to be mindful, because sometimes the owner will come out and go like, what the hell are you doing? I had this happen to me. I actually had the cops called on me because they thought we were trying to
Like case.
fight.
Oh.
Or like dog fighting. Like we had a pit, and they thought we were trying to teach the dog and using the yard dog to bait dog.
Yeah.
No, I'm here to fix the problem, guy. Here's the invoice, So, but I've had the cops called on me a handful of times because of I deal with aggression, so it looks bad, and I'm like, no, I'm here to fix the problem.
Right.
But that's another thing, just being mindful of that. But being able to walk with her and her just like not be like the neighborhood asshole is completely realistic. Okay. Part of the issues with her sociability, like I said, you said earlier, like they could be greeting, everything's fine, but then all of a sudden, like there's a switch, right? Is that's most likely due to what we call overstimulation. Okay, which is tying back to when you first got her and you said like she'd focus on something, right? It's the brain constantly needing something to do. It's one of the most common things I deal with, especially with pitties. They usually have a lot of overstimulation issues. So like right now, before the beginning of the consult, do you remember how she was? And you see how she is now.
Right.
Right? And you're not saying any commands. Okay? What do you think, when I told you to do this and this, right? What do you think what was the conversation there? What do you think, what were we looking to create there? What do you think?
Expectations?
Right? Expectation of what?
Like she knows what I want her to do.
Which is?
For her to
I'll be a jerk.
not be a jerk, to
What is she doing right now?
relax, kind of.
Kind of. She's not fully relaxed.
Yeah, I
agree with
see
you.
her
This is
ears.
goofy,
But-
right? But she's settling.
Yeah.
But remember earlier she was sitting, and then she laid down for like a minute, and she got up, right?
Yeah.
And you repeated. That's overstimulation. The
Okay.
brain is used to doing something, right? Like this is overstimulation. Yep. And then you bring her in, you pull up. Yep. So go ahead and just kind of pull her like this.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And then now just relax. Good. And then she's going to lay down again, and then it's going to happen again, because we don't have anything to disrupt the pattern of needing to do something. Okay. The prong definitely is much better than if you had nothing, or especially a harness. Harness makes things way worse. To communicate with her, I know you want to do something right now, but that's not what we're doing. We're having a conversation. Read the room.
Right.
Right? And because you're being consistent, every time the brain moves, you go, nope, you're not doing that. Nope, you're not doing that. So the human goes, oh, you're just making the dog sit. I'm like, it looks like a sit, but it's really relax. Right? So if you go to a friend's house and they say, hey, make yourself comfortable, you're probably going to just sit down.
Right.
Right? Same thing for the dog here. So I'm using the sit position as a baseline. And then from there, if she lay down, I wouldn't care, because that's simply a more relaxed mindset, right? So the more I do this over and over and over again, to a point, she's going to go, okay, I'm just going to fall asleep now, okay? So what the remote collar allows us to do is achieve this kind of mindset, but in the real world, right? Because if you're walking, you're not just going to stop and make her sit several times to calm her down after something, right? So, but because she's so used to practicing overstimulation, it's kind of become who she is. So when we start to teach the brain focus through the leash walking exercise, it teaches the brain how to turn off. Because in order to focus, it has to shut out the world, pay attention to you, which then allows it to turn off. So a lot of times clients will note, hey, after I did the heel exercise for the first few days, I started to notice my dog being calmer in the home. Or like frustration chewing. Like when I deal with the puppy, if a puppy is 9 months and 8 months or still chewing, I know it's frustration. We'll do the heel stuff, and then almost like clockwork, the next class, Jesse, my dog, stopped chewing. I go, yes, because now they're calming down. The chewing was the outlet of frustration because their brain couldn't relax.
Yeah.
Okay, so so the other thing is, because she's learning to practice calmness and focus, we start to see a more calm dog, because she's like, naturally we want to be in a relaxed state. Right? Like no one really wants to be in a hopped up state all the time. You might be for a concert, for a party, right? Get together, a volleyball game, whatever.
Right.
As soon as you're out of it, you're kind of like back to this, right?
Well, and that's something we've talked about that we want for her, because we just like, she'll feel so much better when she's not always at a 12. Like,
For sure. Okay. But we have to show her how to get to that.
Yeah.
Okay. Another thing I'd most likely recommend that we teach is what's called the place command. Are you familiar with that?
like go to your place.
Correct. Okay. Does she know that?
So we did the like level 1 basic obedience with her at pause last year, and she got okay at that one. We have not been keeping up with working on that one because we've been dealing with her other stuff.
Yeah.
But she did, she got it, and we could certainly keep working on it with her.
Yeah. Do you know how place, like what it's supposed to be?
Like theirs.
That's their spot, right?
Yeah.
But like, so place is go to your object and don't move until I tell you to. So that could be 30 minutes. It can be 3 hours. It could be 6 hours. Okay. And I don't care what the environment is. This could be a busy brewery where you can bring your dog along and stuff like that. I drop a towel down, go to place, and waiters coming, dogs are passing, people are walking by. Oh my God, look at your cute dog, right? The dog is still meant to hold the position. I would love that.
The dream.
I know when I say these things, people go, really? I go, yes. I go, the issue is obedience now is looked at as cutesy things that our dogs do for treats. And they can be. But obedience, it's in the word, to be obedient, right? Is if I say something, you do it until I tell you you don't need to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Sit, stay, down, come, place, heel. 6 commands. Those 6 commands are meant to be functional. Paw, roll over, fetch me a beer. Maybe fetch me a beer is an obedience command, right? But that's fun stuff. I don't care about that.
Right.
But I care about the 6, what I call family pet commands. Sit, stay, down, come, place, heel. Okay. Those 6 commands are meant to allow you to do whatever you want with your dog. So I've had clients, I recently just had a client, they moved from the US to the UK. Okay. I trained her dog just because she wanted me to train her dog, just for obedience. She did not know at the time that they were going to be moving to the UK. Apparently, flying to the UK, things are much more stricter with like service dogs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Her dog wasn't a service dog. Okay. But her dog was so well trained that you wouldn't question if the dog was a service dog. Okay. Because she followed through with the homework. So she was like all worried. She's like, I don't know if I'm able to take my dog. I love my dog, this and that. And I was like, you've been so solid on your homework. I'm not worried about it. Okay. I wrote her a letter stating that the dog was trained, this and that. I vouched for her because she was a responsible owner. She wasn't doing it just to, abuse the system.
Right.
So she moves over to the UK. This was back like 21, 22. She emailed me about 3 to 4 months ago because they were in the UK, but then they're going to Italy. And it was even stricter within the Europe to go from the UK to Italy. And she emails me back and she's like, Jesse, I've been spot on with the training, this and that, but I need you to vouch for me again, And then she flew to Italy, no questions asked. Okay. That's what real obedience training is. Is if I had another client, his dog actually came to me for aggression. It was a deaf bull terrier. His name was Bane. He did a 4-week boarding train. Okay. He used to bite people and go after dogs. I trained him. This was back in 2019. He would come around me for daycare and boarding. And then in the summer of this year, he's like, hey, I have to take this dog to Miami. I have to fly with this dog, right? He's like, do you think I can do it? I'm like, well, if you've been doing the homework and everything, I don't think it's going to be a problem. Okay. So I sent them what he should do and everything like that. Flew on the plane, sent me a picture with him and his son and the dog, and they're just like this, right? No problems. I kind of wish I didn't tell him that because he would board his dog all the time, but now I haven't seen his dog since then, so I'm assuming he's enjoying that. But that's what obedience is, okay? So I don't use these tools because I'm mean, because I'm lazy. I do them because, one, they work. But then also, when a client has come back like, hey, Jesse, I absolutely need to do this, as long as they follow through, they did their homework, and they were good, it's never been an issue. I had a guy who came to me for a consult and asked if I would just write him the letter so he could fly. And I was like, dude, I don't know your dog. I don't know how responsible you are. I'm not putting my name and my business on the line just so you can fly with your dog, because you're trying to do it as cheaply as possible. I was like, if anything, contact your previous trainer, and if they're that confident in their training, they will just write you the letter.
Sure.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it is perfectly feasible. Now, there are some cases where, like, the dog, they just don't do well in public settings. I don't think that's her case so far from what you're telling me.
Yeah.
I think she needs some discipline, some ground rules, some expectations, and she'd be able to do so.
Yeah.
Okay? But that is technically possible. Okay? The next thing, of course, is always recall. I think every dog should have a reliable off-leash recall.
Yeah, that is so the last few days when I've been thinking about coming in here, if she's out in the yard and she's barking at someone, I can call her a dozen times. She doesn't even look at me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'd be something I would also suggest that we cover. Okay.
Yeah.
Place, heel, and come will allow you to do a ton of stuff with your dog.
Yeah.
Having a reliable down command is nice. It's not necessary as long as you have a towel on you. Like clients will go on the plane, and if they've only covered place, they just roll the towel on the plane floor and they just place their dog. It's almost the same thing as the down.
Yeah.
The down just allows us, even without the object, to put down the dog and have that stationary control for an extended period of time without worrying about what's going to happen.
Right.
Okay. So obedience-wise, heel and recall are definitely the musts.
Yeah.
Place I would recommend. Sit down and stay would be if you would like them. Okay. And then it goes to how advanced do you want the training to be? So all the commands can be taught to an off-leash level. Okay. Obviously, the only command that has to be off-leash reliable is recall.
Right.
Okay. But it is nice to be able to have a dog be heel off leash, because then you go to forest preserves or whatever where they allow dogs.
Sure.
Oh, we're going to walk past dog here. I can bring my dog in, heel them, walk past whatever we're going to walk past, and once we're past it, I can release them without having to constantly do this.
That'd be really nice.
Yeah, we my family has a house in Michigan, and so like we love to like walk them on the beach, but we would never take her off the leash up there because when she gets something in her head.
Yeah, she's just. And then also I was thinking like recall and stuff. So we had a condo, now we just bought a house, and we have a porch, and there's the fenced in yard, and it's very nice. And so in the summer, I'm going to want to live on the porch with her, and so it'll be nice if she's not constantly
Yeah.
At the gate.
Yeah.
And that's like, of course, where place comes into play, right? Because it's like, I don't even want to deal with you going off the porch right now. Place,
Right.
or if
Bed
you're
on the
down,
porch.
boom. read your newspaper, what have you,
Yeah.
right? That's how that stuff is meant to work.
Yeah.
Okay. Everything is perfectly and realistically, how to say, those results are perfectly capable or within your capability of achieving.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, are you going to do the homework?
Yeah.
Okay. They sound like, oh my God, this is going to take so much time, and it doesn't, because of how I train. Once we teach a skill, you begin using it in your life immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Does this mean you're going to place it for 3 hours at a restaurant the next day? No. But if you're watching TV and you're watching a marathon and you're doing nothing anyways, place your dog, right? If I'm going to cook for an hour and a half and make dinner, place my dog. If I'm going to read or work from home, place my dog, down my dog, right? And then,
That's a dream.
then you build to the restaurant setting. What they think is, okay, my dog knows how to do it, and I had this happen one time, and they go straight to the brewery, and they're like, oh my God, I can't have a good time because my dog is terrible. I go, yes, because you're jumping ahead quite a bit. It is perfectly realistic when you do the steps,
Right.
okay? And my goal, my job, of course, is to guide you. People tend to do training in very controlled contexts and then hope one day it will work in life.
Mm-hmm.
I go, no. We train the behavior and we right away begin applying it in our life.
Mm-hmm.
So then the one day where I go, hey, I actually need you to get over here, it's going to work because you've done it 1,000 other times where it didn't matter.
Right.
But people don't do that. They do it, and then one day when it matters, they try to use it, and then they're mad because it doesn't work because
Right.
they didn't do it 1,000 times when it didn't matter.
Right. Right.
Okay, so, but yeah, that's perfectly feasible as well. Okay,
Cool.
I always shoot for 110%. We're not going to get 110%, but I will get a hell of a lot closer to 100
Sure.
if we aim that high. If I go 70%, we're going to get less than 70%.
Right.
That's just how that works.
Right.
Okay. So with that in mind, because we do 3, 6, 9, and 12-week programs,
Mm-hmm.
if we're doing in person, I always do recommend in person.
Yeah.
It takes longer, but you learn far more.
Oh, yeah, we wouldn't do virtual.
Yeah.
No, well, there's board and train and daycare and train.
Oh, I
Where
see.
you,
I
like,
see.
drop the dog off or whatever.
Got it. Got it.
I recommend in person because it's all hands on for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're gonna live with this dog.
Sure.
You're the one that needs to like learn these things, right?
Mhm.
So I most likely place you like around 9-ish classes.
Okay.
Okay, so that's once a week for an hour. Sometimes we skip weeks just to give you more time.
Mm-hmm.
But generally in the beginning, it's pretty step by step. If our goal is to have certain things to be off leash, okay, and we're covering our bases, we feel good about behavior, we're feeling good about all our obedience stuff, right? And you go, hey Jesse, we'd like to build, this recall to an off leash level or the heel to an off leash level. Let's say we're on class 7. I'll give you an exercise and then go and practice this until you're ready.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would come back for class 8. It could be a month, it could be 3 months. Sometimes I don't see clients for seasons.
Uh-huh.
So I had a client, they did a 12-week program. I saw them 6 weeks in the summer. I got them as far as I could, as well as touching on some off-leash stuff for them to practice.
Mm-hmm.
Then they came back this past summer, and then we finished off the rest of the program.
Okay.
The time allows you to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Allows you to have a lot of successes, to see what's working, what's not working.
Mm-hmm.
So when you come back for whatever class, you have a lot to bring to me.
Mm-hmm.
But if I see you week by week, there's a point where it's like, yeah, we couldn't really do much because we didn't have time to go to the park.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I go, why are we here then?
Sure.
So I've learned now, once we get to a point, I'll advise the client, go and take your time.
Take some time.
Come back when you're ready. Don't pre-book them because people do that. And they come back like, oh, Jesse, my mom died.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, why are we here?
Right.
Come back after you've had practice. Okay.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
If you did 12, it just gives us more time to cover more commands.
Mm-hmm.
So typically with 12 classes, it's all commands built to an off-leash level, plus the behavioral stuff, pending it's nothing too crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this is crazy from what you're telling me. Okay?
Yeah. That's the
9,
hope.
9 is not all the commands are going to be off-leash reliable, but obviously the recall, most likely the heel as well, and then of course targeting the behaviors. Okay. If you did a 6, which I wouldn't recommend, 6 would be me bare bonesing it. I focus on the behavior first. That's always most important. And then I do as much as I can with the other stuff. Okay. When clients ask if they can do 6 and then 3 or what have you, I don't care. However, we don't prorate programs. Okay. If you commit to 9 or 12 or whatever up front, it is cheaper per class. If you did 6 and then added 3, you would end up paying more than you would for a 9. because we're not prorating the
Right.
program.
Mhm.
Okay? Question on any of that stuff. One of the most common questions I get is, Jesse, when does e-collar go away? In my book, when you need it, it doesn't. If you're going to be utilizing that off-leash training, you're going to need it. If you're going to that restaurant and bringing your Birdie, you're going to need it, right? If she's going to be socializing, maybe you're going to need it. If you're in a setting where you're like, she's great here, we never had a problem, and you don't want to use it, then you don't bring it. Okay? Pretty much any time where there's going to be uncontrollable factors is when I tell clients you're probably going to need it, and it's not because you have to use it. It's because the presence of it already lets the dog know
Right.
consequences here, right? So I'm going to be my best behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what's called opportunistic behavior. You familiar with this?
It makes sense. Like,
what does it mean to you?
like, if she can get away with it, she will get away with it.
Track, yes.
Yeah.
You guys drive?
Yeah.
Do you go on the expressway?
Mm-hmm.
Do you go the speed limit?
No.
Who does? Right? And when you're behind someone who does, you're like, speed the fuck up.
Yeah.
You know? Opportunistic behavior. You see a squad car, what happens?
Well, then I'm
Yeah.
the most law-abiding citizen in the world.
Yeah, right? You pass a squad car, everything is clear.
Right.
Speed back up again, right? That's opportunistic behavior. The dog will never one day wake up and decide, oh, you know, you've put so much time and money into me, I'm just going to be a good dog now. You know, this is a very common thing that I get. When is a dog going to be a good dog? I tell them your dog's being a good dog because you're doing a good job about being a leader, right? Reinforcing things, holding accountability and all that stuff, applying the consequences. That's why the dog is a good dog, okay? So here, it's slow right now because we just came over the holidays, but we had 50 dogs here, like over Christmas, just as quiet, okay? Because it's of consistency. I run a structured daycare. That's why it's a camp perspective structured daycare, boarding, training, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not the dogs never bark. They do bark. If you walked in the kennel room, they would bark. Makes sense. They don't know
Sure.
you, right? But they would settle down once I tell them to settle down.
Yeah.
Okay. Or if they hear something, they'll bark. But it's not all day, every day like most other dog kennels. You know? But I get that consistency in their behavior because of my consistency in how I run things here. All my staff is taught this is how you reinforce things. This is how you give consequence if a dog misbehaves. X, Y, Z. We get some clients who come and their dogs to them are the best dogs in the world. They come here, the dog's an asshole, okay? And they don't want us to use the prong collar, or they don't want us to use the remote collar to correct them, which is fair, that's their dog. But then I tell them, if we cannot correct your dog for being a jerk, then they cannot come here because I got 50 other dogs that are adhering to our rules and your dog's disrupting everything and it will disrupt 50 dogs,
Right.
you know? And I go, it's your dog at the end of the day, I don't care. But I'm not going to keep them here. They have plenty of options because they can just go anywhere else, you know. But consistency, of course, is key with obtaining and keeping the results that we achieve. And what's nice is when you have a trained dog, you use your training a lot, right? When people are like, oh crap, this actually works, right? It's motivational for them to keep applying it, which actually keeps the functionality, you know. A common thing that I do see is like when I work with my reactivity cases, in like the summer, fall, is come the spring, I usually get a bunch of emails. Hey Jesse, my dog's reactive. And I go, right, because everybody was hibernating for winter. And then you go out and everybody and the mom's walking their dog.
Right.
And then they have to, it's nothing permanent. I'll tell them, like, just, you have to correct the behavior, possibly raise a number. 9 times out of 10, that fixes the problem. Every now and then somebody's doing something incorrectly and then they do a refresher and they help fix the problem. But that's a common thing, is that after the winter, going into the spring, they'll see some level of regression because now their dogs are out.
Sure.
Okay, but once you understand how to fix it, you're like, okay, I don't have to do it, no problem. Okay. And it doesn't mean, again, they're using the collar all the time. It's simply present, also in case of an emergency. You know, like with my client who's that lady's dog went after her dog.
Right.
Pulled her dog right away because of recall. I had another client just playing at Oz Park, just playing fetch with her Pittie, and this guy let his off-leash lab come in. And they went for the ball at the same time, dog fight. She had to do 127 continuous, which is the harshest correction you can give. Her dog yelped, but 180 out of the fight ran straight to her. She called me up a frantic mess.
Yeah.
I said, you did the right thing. I'm sorry that your dog essentially had to be partially corrected because of this other guy.
Yeah.
But if you hadn't done that, that fight would have just continued.
Right.
And who knows where we would be.
Sure. Yeah.
You know? So I've had client dogs come across coyote in Lincoln Park. There's coyote in Lincoln Park somewhere. Fireworks. You're at the park. It's October.
Yeah.
Some kid finds a firework. They blow it up. Spooks the dog.
Right.
Dog runs away. I'm not worried because I had my collar. I can return my dog in that situation, and that's stuff that does happen. So it's just there, just in case. If you've been following the instructions correctly, if I get a client, they're like, yeah, I use it about 5 times, 10 times a day, I go, you're doing something incorrectly.
Right.
Because you should be at a point where like it's just there.
Right.
Okay. Question about any of that?
No.
Other than that, it's pretty much it. Those last things are like the most common questions that I get. I can only take as far as you're willing to go. I have had cases where I'm like, this is gonna be easy. It's very hard. I had cases where like, it's gonna be super hard and it's very easy. Like I can't predict things. But like, let's say your dog just happens to be very physically tough, and her number is 80 or something. It's the emotional component and the logical component, because the owner's like, I'm 80 out of 127. This has to hurt, right? And then they start to get in their head, and then they're not doing things as they should, and then of course they start to fall back. Okay, it's a fairly common thing. Everything that we do is common sense. We start low, we work our way up. If I hit 60 and she's still misbehaving, even if she's yipping, I go, well, yes, you're yipping, but you're still being a jerk.
Right.
So clearly this isn't working.
Yeah.
And we just keep going up. And then maybe I hit 90 and all of a sudden she yips, but then completely stops. Right? I didn't pick the 90.
Right.
I would love it if she did it at 20.
Right.
But she's being stubborn. So
Right.
that's the stuff that I would say expect.
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes it's easy peasy. Sometimes it's not. I can't predict it, unfortunately. Okay. But definitely with pitties, they tend to be more stubborn. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think we're committed to making her
Yeah.
the best she could be and have a
we
good
want
life.
her to be happy, to not feel so all over the place all
Yeah.
the time. Like, I mean, obviously we want her to be better behaved because it'll make our lives easier, but we also want her to feel like...
Yeah. And like when we do like things of consequence, right? In a way, it makes the dog feel safer.
Yeah.
Because the one that gives the consequence is the leader. And the leader is then also in charge of anything that would happen. If that makes sense? So for my employees here, if they make a mistake or whatever, there's going to be consequence, right? And I'll tell them like, hey, don't do that, blah, 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 right? But then also, if something happens with the business, I'm still making sure they're getting paid. Like they don't see that, right? They don't see all the stuff that I do to ensure they get a paycheck every 2 weeks. But that's why I hold them accountable for everything. Otherwise, it's not worth the pain to, be like, okay, I'm not going to pay myself this week because I got to pay you. You know what I mean? So same thing for the dog. If you're correcting things when you can't do this, this is not allowed, blah, 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 you're also telling her, if something were to happen to us, I'm the one that's going to address it.
Yeah.
Okay. That stuff, I get dogs that are attacked by off-leash dogs. It happens, and like a light switch, the next day they're aggressive. And I tell the owner, like, it's created of distrust, because now the dog's like, there was an environmental thing that attacked me, and you did not know what to do.
So now I have to defend myself.
Correct. So, like, I know how to address off-leash dogs, and in my opinion, if a dog's coming and I have my dogs, and if I do something that stops that dog and then deters it, the dog goes, I don't know what you did, but that threat that was charging directly at us is no longer doing that.
Right.
Like that's not intelligence. That's just I call it social dynamic. So if you go to another country, let's say you see someone spit on the ground, right, and then you see what looks like to be a cop arrest them. What have you just learned?
Get arrested for spitting.
Yes. So are you going to do it?
No.
No. You don't have to know the language to
Right.
see what happened and go like, maybe I don't want to spit on the ground here, right? It's the same thing for animals, in my opinion. They see something happening, they see you do something, and then they go, oh, after you did what you did, that threat went away. I feel safer now. You see that? So these are like the underlying things that people don't really think about, that in my opinion, dogs do think about. Okay? Anything else?
No, I mean, I'm glad to hear you don't. I mean, I also didn't think that she was like a, like dire case of anything, but it's good to know that you also.
Well, one thing that I'm looking at here is like, you see how much more calmer she is now, even from earlier.
Yeah.
Right? Her posture is much more relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's not much going on here, but I get dogs that it's just complete unsettled, and no matter what the client does, they just do not relax. That tells me where the dog is, The fact that she's relaxing very easily too, like you're not doing a whole lot of work here.
She was.
Yeah. Oops, sorry, babe. That's my fault. I was just gonna try and stop the
You know,
thing from buzzing.
and once we're in the moment, I'll know more. But even if it's like, oh, this is going to be more difficult, like I just go, it's all right. Like we'll just go through the motions like I normally do. Okay.
Yeah, well, and she's smart, and like when we did the training with her at Pause, like she loved it. Like she likes having a thing to like do. So I think
I'm surprised that I thought last I heard, I thought Paws didn't use aversives like prong.
we didn't use the prong there.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Because it was when we first got her, so it was kind of before. It was before any of her issues showed up. It was more just like we were like, oh, she's a new dog. We should take her to get some training.
I gotcha. Yeah.
She was using one of those ones that clips like.
Oh, the harness, the front and back clip. One?
Yeah, that's what they recommended at Anti-Cruelty. Did not work.
I don't know why people do the harness thing. So harnesses are meant for pulling. So when I see no pull harness, that's like an oxymoron, right? That's what it's designed for. Even with the front clip, the dog just ends up walking like this a lot of the time. But what happens is, are you familiar with opposition reflex?
No.
It's a fancy word. All it means is when a dog feels tension is they want to go against it. So if you have the harness putting tension on the chest, going that way, the dog's more motivated to go this way. Okay. It's completely instinctual. They're not doing it, to be jerks or anything like that. It's literally the moment you put them on any. So if you pull right, left, they'll pull right. If you pull left, they'll pull right. Right. It's what they do.
Yeah.
But yeah, harnesses make things way worse. They exacerbate reactivity. It can even create aggression over the course of time. So I've had clients who put their puppies on harnesses because they don't want anything on the throat. Makes sense. But then a happy-go-lucky becomes a frustrated puppy because they can't get to, like earlier what you described to me sounded like frustration, right? She starts to bark because she can't get to it. That's correct.
Yeah.
But then if that frustration builds over and over and over again for a period of time, it starts to become aggression. So they're unintentionally raising the puppies to be aggressive. We use harnesses in protection training to teach the aggression. We have somebody antagonizing the dog. There's a handler holding the dog back because it's getting frustrated.
So they get that drive.
Yes. And then when we want to, we release as they lunge to reward the behavior. And that's what people are unintentionally doing with their puppies. Yeah. So, more you know. Right? Anything else?
I don't believe so.
So, you can reach out to Tina. Talk about it, what you'd like to do, and all that stuff. My recommendation, of course, is 9.
Okay.
She'd be on the Dr. Black edition, that collar right there. It's meant for a 70-pound dog and over. She's not 70 pounds. She looks to be like 40 to 50.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm recommending it because of intensity. Okay. All it means is you get more from less.
Sure.
So I could put on my 8-pound Chihuahua. It's perfectly fine. He would just have a stupid low number. Okay. I don't care where you get the collar from. I just care that you do get the correct collar. We do give all our training clients and daycare clients 10% off of all our stuff, everything in here. So if you get it through us, you do get the 10% off. It comes with a 1-year warranty. If something happens within the first 30 days, you just let me know. I swap it out for you. I deal with the company myself. After that, if something else happens, you can send it in for repairs. Most common thing that I see is the battery does give out because it's a rechargeable lithium battery. Very easy to replace. $25 if you order it online, or you can bring it here. It's $35 if I do it for you. Doesn't take a long time. Very simple. I had my first collars for like 10 to 12 years before they crapped out. Fully waterproof system, both the transmitter and the receiver.
Nice.
Okay, so she likes to go swimming in the lake and stuff. Perfectly fine. We just want to make sure that the charging ports are closed. If you want to help expedite things, when you email Tina, say, Tina, hey, sign us up. We want X amount of classes. Here's our schedules. Okay, where you're both available. She's going to take that and then cross-reference. Okay. Otherwise, she'll say, here, this is what Jesse recommended, right? Here's our contract, and then wait for you to tell her the same stuff anyways.
Right.
Okay. So if you want to just kind of skip some steps, that's one way to do it. Please feel free to read the contract. It's pretty straightforward. Our the refund policy, all that stuff is in there. If you have questions, please feel free to ask questions. Do keep in mind that it's first come, first serve. Okay, so sometimes clients are asking questions, and then of course I'm getting signed up, and then our clients are signing up, and then they turn around and like, well, Jess is not available on these days anymore. I'm like, oh, what the hell? Okay, so just heads up on that. You guys are coming at a good time. In the winter time, my boarding trains and daycare trains go up. My in-persons go down. Come the spring, summer, In-person show up.
Sure.
Boarding trains and trains go down. Okay, so right now there's a little bit of a lull in regards to in-person.
Nice.
Okay.
Okay.
But that's pretty much it.
Great.
All right.
Okay. If you have any questions you may have forgotten to ask, feel free to tell Tina. If they pertain to me, she'll ask me. I'll email her back. She'll send it to you. Otherwise, she'll answer any other questions you may have.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Thank you.
Nice meeting you guys.
It's nice to meet you too.
She's another birdie. I have my other